Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2 Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. In the blink of an eye, Morosa had been in seclusion for half a century. Morosa's transformation this time sure is taking a fair bit of time. Luo Feng sat atop a pavilion in the city owner's mansion, sensing Morosa's condition within the star tower with just a thought. Of the corpse materials he gave, Morosa had devoured about 2/3, leaving the rest untouched. At this moment, Morosa was in deep slumber, and his aura was transforming very slowly. His aura has already become stronger than Emperor Guishu and Wuxin God King, and it's still transforming. Luo Feng revealed a smile. I believe once the transformation is successful, he will be at the ultimate realm. The ultimate realm. In this era, only Emperor Qing and the Lord of 10,000 Realms had attained a complete great Tao through their own understanding. Emperors and monarchs could wield strength comparable to the ultimate realm with the help of numerous super-secret treasures. However, when it came to techniques and the subtlety of their moves, naturally, they were no match for those truly at the ultimate realm. Although the sector beast reached the ultimate realm merely by eating and drinking, it was genuinely at the ultimate realm, with extremely refined moves. Once Morosa breaks through and becomes ultimate realm, many things I want to do can be done, Luo Feng said, cradling a cup of wine, looking at the snowflakes drifting within Huyang City. Now he still acted with restraint because his every action could not be completely concealed. The various probing methods of the two ancient countries, whether from the aspect of time and space or causality, could trace many clues. Once Morosa grasps a complete great Tao, he will be free from causality, achieving the great Tao to perfection, without leaving a trace. Luo Feng knew this. A complete great Tao had many powerful aspects. With the great Tao at perfection, its operation could weaken all attacks. Even Luo Feng's spiritual will attack would be weakened. As the realm increased, what seemed like the mysterious spiritual will attack lost its mystery. With a complete great Tao in hand, it could be resisted and weakened to some extent. And if one was beyond God King level, the means of defense would be even stronger. Even the beyond God King level weapons they refined had the effect of weakening will attacks. After all, will attacks were but a branch of the soul path. If it was a complete soul method, it would infiltrate an attack from various aspects, naturally much more terrifying. Pure will attacks were very advantageous in the land of origin. After all, those who mastered a complete great Tao were few and far between. In the future, however, should he leave the land of origin and meet opponents like the 3 alien clans, ancestors of countries, and so on, his spiritual will help would weaken, and even Luo Feng's spiritual will might not be as strong as the opponents. My cultivation time is still too short, and I'm only at the second realm of Godly King. Slowly does it, no rush. Luo Feng had a clear plan for his path of cultivation. During his period in the land of origin, he had 2 objectives concerning cultivation. One was to reach the ultimate realm. The other was to be patient enough to comprehend the high-level secret techniques from a lower realm, preferring to cultivate more slowly but refine his comprehension. Master. A figure walked through the snow and came to the pavilion, respectfully saluting. It was Luo Feng's second disciple, Xin Yu. Come up. Luo Feng put down his wine cup, smiling at his disciple. Among the disciples of the Blade River sect, the one with the highest talent was Xin Yu, who made rapid progress along the way and was now at the pinnacle of primal chaos realm. He had no interest in managing the sect's trivial matters and was solely focused on cultivation. Xin Yu, dressed in a blue robe, respectfully saluted, Master, I've cultivated the heaven-splitting branch and the mixed heaven branch to their bottlenecks, but I can't take the final step and truly grasp the great Tao branch. Xin Yu, you've reached the primal chaos realm in just over 2 centuries. To have reached the pinnacle of primal chaos realm is already quite remarkable. Luo Feng looked at his disciple, but you should know, the imperial clan of the ancient countries, the first-rank Marquis, can reach the pinnacle of primal chaos realm in just 100 years with enough resources. Disciple knows his talent is nothing in the whole land of origin. Xin Yu looked at Luo Feng, his eyes burning with passion. Master, you only spent several years to become transcendent in the primal chaos realm. Ha ha. Luo Feng laughed. Indeed, He became transcendent in the primal chaos realm in just a few years. With his perfect divine body and the formless transformation technique, he possessed the strength of transcendence of primal chaos realm. At that time, the outside world suspected Luo Feng to be the reincarnation of some godly king. What I want to tell you is, even if the imperial clan and marquis of the ancient countries reach the pinnacle of primal chaos realm early on, many will be stuck at the bottleneck for a lifetime, unable to become godly kings. Luo Feng looked at his disciple. Stuck at the bottleneck for a lifetime? Xin Yu's heart tightened. The cultivation of the primal chaos realm involves only the gradual comprehension of the branches of the great Tao and slow accumulation. However, to truly comprehend a branch of the great Tao requires an epiphany, said Luo Feng. Epiphany? Xin Yu was puzzled. An epiphany cannot be forced, Luo Feng said. The key lies in extensive accumulation that leads to swift success. What you need to do now is not comprehend the branches of the great Tao, but rather, you should study the emperor-level secret techniques. Comprehending one secret technique means reaching the transcendence of primal chaos realm. Comprehend 2 or 3 secret techniques. The more secret techniques you understand, the closer you are to the great Tao. One day, you will naturally comprehend the branch of the great Tao, Luo Feng continued. To comprehend the godly king's secret techniques, the more I understand, the closer I am to the great Tao. Xin Yu asked, Master, how many godly king's secret techniques do I need to comprehend to become a godly king? You're mistaken. Luo Feng shook his head. The more you crave for the comprehension of the great Tao, the further you are from it. Do not seek the branches of the great Tao, but focus on comprehending the secret techniques. Gradually accumulate and one day, the breakthrough will occur naturally. Only with sound accumulation at each realm will you be able to go farther on the godly king path. Luo Feng looked at his disciple. Focus on comprehending the secret techniques, not pursuing the branches of the great Tao. I understand. Xin Yu respectfully saluted. Disciple takes his leave. Luo Feng nodded. Luo Feng was very clear that focusing solely on comprehending godly king's secret techniques, without pursuing branches of the great Tao, set an extremely high threshold for cultivation. For those with average comprehension, it would be quite an achievement to comprehend a single godly king's secret technique in their lifetime. Being my disciple, your goals should be more ambitious. Otherwise, spending a lifetime as an ordinary godly king, what's the point? Luo Feng naturally had expectations for his second disciple, Xin Yu. In the land of origin, within a concealed world named Mother River World. This was the heart of the resistance force against the flame-wind ancient country. This black-robed, gold-faced powerhouse is extremely strong. His physical body is no less than that of an ultimate realm life-form, and his spiritual will is even beyond God King level. God King Zongfu softly shook his head. The dual strength of body and soul is so powerful that even the purple-robed woman was defeated by him. With such a terrifying strength, how can he remain so detached from the world? The most pinnacle existences on the land of origin, including the sector beast of Qianmu Kingdom and the Lord of 10,000 Realms, are all acting covertly to battle for resources. This black-robed figure, does he not care about resources? The pinnacle existences of the land of origin who stay out of worldly affairs are Wind City Empress and Fire Ancestor. God King Zongfu said, with the support of the Ancestor of the East Extreme Domain, Wind City Empress naturally doesn't need to fight for resources. As for Fire Ancestor, it's said that after Fire Ancestor met Yuan and received guidance from Yuan, he no longer needed to compete and devoted himself to cultivation. What's the Blackrobe's reason for not competing? God King Zongfu was somewhat puzzled. He only made a move once in the Dream Domain, and we've never seen any trace of him in other treasure lands. All those resources, he's just going to watch and not care. With his strength, he could take a lot. Being suppressed for long years by the two ancient countries, once one attains the strength of an emperor or monarch level, they usually can't help but compete for resources, lamented Yu Fu God King. As the source world of the land of origin gradually enters its end stage, anyone with a bit of ambition competes. I thought we might have an additional ally. By joining forces, we could take more from the two ancient countries. God King Zongfu shook his head. Who would have thought that after parting in the Dream Domain, we would never see him again? As the leader of the entire Mother River force, God King Zongfu naturally participated in battles over numerous treasure lands. He too longed to obtain more precious resources and to assemble a complete set of primordial bloodline. The black-robed powerhouse seemed like a casual cultivator, and God King Zongfu was very welcoming of that. But it seemed that the black-robed powerhouse was too low-key and didn't care much for the treasure land's resources. God King Zongfu and Yufu God King had no idea that Luo Feng had only been a godly king for just over 3 centuries, while the so-called end stage of the land of origin had tens of billions of centuries, so Luo Feng didn't feel any urgency at all. Within Huyang City, in the quiet room of the city owner's mansion, inside the Star Tower, Luo Feng had been studying the newly acquired materials from the Ultimate Realm primordial bloodline creatures' corpses, which gave insight into 15 life forms at the Ultimate Realm level, including the 24 forms as one of those life forms. These 3 Ultimate Realm primordial bloodline creatures, in their most basic life configuration, each embodied multiple forms. Combining 6 forms meant combining 6 different life forms into one, which was truly marvelous. The material inherited in their bloodline was equally miraculous, but Luo Feng, with little accumulation in the origin Tao of matter, didn't understand it. Examining these materials with my own eyes has considerably improved my understanding of life forms. Luo Feng's spiritual consciousness also penetrated the Star Tower, observing its vast and endless secret patterns. The secret patterns of the Star Tower. They included various categories, with life-related secret patterns being the most numerous, accounting for about 1/3, and being absolutely central. These life secret patterns can merge multiple forms into one, Luo Feng discovered, and the life secret patterns on the superficial layers of the Star Tower resembled the 15 life forms, which swiftly aided Luo Feng in sorting out the classifications. As Luo Feng's research deepened, the source of countless secret patterns, blood-red scales with 12 colors, seemed increasingly terrifying. Luo Feng was bewildered for a moment. The blood-red scales radiated a horrifying, evil bloodlight, so much so that they seemed like an endless sea of blood enveloping Luo Feng's spirit, making even someone as strong-willed as he was tremble in fear, prompting him to immediately cease his observation. What's going on? Luo Feng sat cross-legged inside the Star Tower. As my research deepens, these blood-red scales become even more terrifying. Luo Feng calmed his mental state and soon revealed an excited smile. Then I'll face it head-on, facing it, studying it, incorporating all the elements that invoked terror into the creation of his secret techniques. This was Luo Feng's initial response when he first encountered the enormous eye in the dreamscape. Luo Feng immersed himself in cultivation once more, constantly attempting to interpret the blood-red scales using the 9 branches of life and death. This time, Luo Feng felt he had a deeper understanding of the blood-red scales and that his creation of secret techniques might bear fruit. The various powers of the land of origin, ever since the black-robed gold-faced powerhouse made a move in the dream domain, were very keen on his next action. But Luo Feng was devoted to cultivation and was also waiting for Morosa's transformation. Unconsciously, more than half a century had passed. Still not successful. Inside the Star Tower, Luo Feng gently shook his head. My understanding of the Star Tower is still not deep enough. I can't create a merged technique for the 9 branches of life and death. I've barely understood the 8th branch merged technique. Luo Feng's thought stirred, and the massive world life form split in 2, with the main avatar possessing 56 times the perfect divine body energy reserve, and its inner world contained that one life lotus. Let's see my ultimate strength without using treasures, thought Luo Feng. Boom. The majestic power contained within the main avatar instantly operated according to the secret technique, and the endless power naturally transformed into a blood-red force. In the blink of an eye, a vast blood river appeared in every corner of this layer of the Star Tower space. It was, in theory, boundlessly vast. Once trapped in this endless blood river, one would never be able to reach the end. Only those whose strength transcended the blood river could break free from it. Is this the river of life that combines the 8-branch secret method? Within the endless blood river, an image of Luo Feng formed. In actuality, this endless blood river was Luo Feng's main avatar. The image that formed was merely a concentration of power and not significant. Rumble tilde tilde tilde. In Luo Feng's perception, This blood river was actually its own world, and the rules of operation of this world were essentially a super-simplified version of the blood-red scales. From this moment, Luo Feng's secret technique could be said to barely scratch the surface of the blood-red scales. But the power was already unimaginably immense. In the depths of the lifeblood river, there was a massive life lotus. When Luo Feng's main avatar transformed into the river of life form, the life lotus also became the core of the river of life, significantly enhancing the might of the river of life. With the blessing of the life lotus, the river of life fully erupt. With a thought from Luo Feng, the blood river surged tumultuously, the heavens and the earth seemed to invert, and the boundless blood river engulfed and annihilated everything. Luo Feng frowned slightly. Supreme rules. While unleashing the full might of the river of life, Luo Feng felt the faint restraint of the supreme rules. The might of the river of life is not far from the limit set by the supreme rules. It feels like increasing its strength by another 30 to 40% would touch this limit. Luo Feng was somewhat surprised. He was only at the second realm of the godly king level, and he had not even used any treasures. His spiritual will, commanding a world life form with 56 times the perfect divine body energy and employing the river of life through the 8-branch secret technique and the rare life lotus blessing, was already close to the power limit of the land of origin. The life lotus is nearly as valuable as a beyond God King grade secret treasure, realized Luo Feng. Without this rare item, perhaps only a 9-branch secret technique could touch the limit. The 6 branches secret method for life and death is comparable to the ultimate realm moves of ordinary Great Tao. The 7 branches secret technique is even more transformative in power. Last time Luo Feng used it to suppress the catastrophe beast avatar of Qianmu Kingdom. The 8-branch secret technique is even more powerful. The terror of merging paths was gradually becoming evident. This is still without using the Star Tower, but it's very close to the limit set by the supreme rules. Let's try the might of the Star Tower. With a thought from Luo Feng, power flowed into the deeper Star Tower secret patterns, beginning to drive countless secret patterns. The secret techniques that Luo Feng had comprehended, including the newly conceived 8-branch secret method River of Life, were all part of Luo Feng's gains from contemplating the Star Tower secret pattern. They could be executed out of thin air. But with the Star Tower, Luo Feng could drive all the secret patterns he had understood. The range of driven secret patterns far surpassed the 8-branch techniques. Rumble tilde tilde tilde. In the depths of the vast blood river, the phantasm of blood-red scales faintly appeared. The entire blood rivers might surge dramatically, instantly touching the limit set by the supreme rules of the land of origin. It would have been one thing for the power to reach the limit, but under the influence of the Star Tower, every stream of blood river appeared like a world, endlessly heavy, with abilities to suppress, imprison, crush, infiltrate, penetrate, strangle, and more. Every characteristic of the 6 branches secret technique, the 7 branches secret technique, and the 8-branch secret technique that Luo Feng had previously comprehended were present in this river. And they merged into one. The supreme rules limit the power of the Star Tower. The image of Luo Feng appeared on the surface of this vast blood river. When the might reaches the limit, the contest is about the mystery of the moves. With the same power, different mysteries yield different might. Luo Feng noticed this. There was only a 30 to 40% difference in the might between not using the Star Tower and using it. But with the Star Tower, the terror of each strand of blood river had qualitatively changed, feeling 10 times stronger. I can feel that even a world life form with 10 times the energy reserve of my own, in front of the blood river formed by the Star Tower, would be eroded and obliterated within a breath. Luo Feng thought to himself, those emperors and monarchs, even with the help of super-secret treasures, how long could they withstand in front of the might of the Star Tower? No wonder the 2 ancestors were able to deter the Heavenly Wood National Boundary Beast and the Lord of 10,000 Realms. Luo Feng understood. Even if it was just the power limit, the extraordinary realm could still be extremely terrifying. Primogenitor Yang Feng's strike could annihilate all of God King Zongfu's avatars and all his resurrection carriers. It was only that God King Zongfu had some special fortunate encounters, and a special avatar that could evade primogenitor Yang Feng's detection. After conceiving the 8-branch secret technique, Luo Feng focused even more on comprehending the materials of the primordial bloodline corpses to deduce the Star Tower secret patterns. Then one day, Luo Feng, who was cultivating, opened his eyes. Morosa has finally made a breakthrough. The aura of Morosa, which had been slowly increasing, finally stabilized completely. The current intensity of the aura was undoubtedly at the level of emperors and monarchs. This was still just a breakthrough for the sector beast, which needed to continuously absorb heaven and earth energy to let its godly body grow to the limit, and by then, its physical body would become even more terrifying. Luo Feng arrived at the layer of Star Tower space exclusively for Morosa. Master, Morosa's aura was thick and terrifying. The space was filled with endless auras of destruction that spread from Morosa as the center, as if it wanted to obliterate everything. Have you mastered the complete path of destruction? Luo Feng looked at the naturally spreading aura of destruction around him. It was much stronger than that of God King Zhongfu and Emperor Di Jiufeng. Without relying on any treasures, pinnacle sector beasts are indeed much stronger than emperors. I, Morosa, have finally made a breakthrough, Morosa said excitedly. I have ultimately become a pinnacle sector beast. Even upon breaking through, I naturally comprehended a destruction path body. Now I just need to absorb energy. Approximately 1 era, and my destruction path body will grow to its strongest state. Destruction path body? Luo Feng was curious. The destruction path body possesses the 3 forms of the path of destruction. Although it's not as strong in life force as the great Tao of life and some other paths, it is extremely powerful in terms of destruction and devastation, Morosa explained excitedly. I've also naturally comprehended 36 ultimate realm secret techniques, and the secret techniques can be combined. I'm confident that I can battle those emperors and monarchs without the need for any treasures. They only rely on super secret treasures, Morosa said with disdain. In terms of realms and strength, they are far inferior to me. You're very powerful now. Luo Feng smiled. Then show me some moves. Morosa gave an awkward smile. Master, I might accidentally hurt you. It's all right. This is just one of my avatars. Even if you destroy this one, it won't affect me much, Luo Feng said with a smile. Master, you said so, Morosa said. Luo Feng nodded slightly. The most powerful being he had ever encountered was the purple-robed woman, but the purple-robed woman, in order to hide her true identity, didn't use some of her more revealing moves, which in some measure affected her strength. Morosa, with the destruction path body, had just transformed and had not yet grown into its strongest form. Luo Feng was still very interested in competing against an ultimate realm existence. Master, be careful. Morosa stood still, extending a finger and gently tapping. That tap. It was like leveraging a complete path of destruction within the supreme rules, a small force levering the entire path of destruction, as various destructive powers enveloped Luo Feng's avatar in an instant. Of course, Morosa also limited the range of the power, attacking only the master's avatar. The complete path of destruction? Luo Feng felt it. After all, he was at the second realm in the path of destruction and could understand some of the subtleties of this move. He felt that Morosa's technique was indeed exquisite, a small force that could burst with such strong power. His own avatar, with 10 times the perfect divine body energy reserve, however, couldn't avoid it and had to endure the full brunt of the attack. If it were an ordinary second realm godly king, they might be obliterated by Morosa with just one finger. But Luo Feng only suffered minor injuries, which healed in the blink of an eye. Morosa, that wasn't enough power, Luo Feng smiled at Morosa. As an ultimate realm being, show me some stronger moves. Morosa's expression changed slightly, and he felt uneasy. I only executed a normal strike, but I leveraged the entire Tao. The master recovered from his injury at the same time. Master, I will use a truly powerful technique this time. Be careful, Morosa said to Luo Feng. Start, Luo Feng commanded. Morosa nodded. Whoosh. In an instant, Morosa split into 18 avatars. The 18 Morosas dispersed into different positions within the vast space, each performing different Ultimate Realm secret technique. At that moment, the 18 Ultimate Realm secret techniques burst forth, and their combined might was not just 18 times stronger. Their perfect synergy transformed the levels of mystery. Boom! With the terrifying might converged at one point, it exploded within Luo Feng's body instantly. In an instant, Luo Feng's body was tattered and full of holes. In a flash, half of Luo Feng's body vanished. But the terrifying life force recovered from nothingness, and Luo Feng's body was quickly restored to its original state in the blink of an eye, although his aura was noticeably weaker. Huff, huff, huff. Morosa's aura also weakened a bit as he looked at Luo Feng, unable to help but say, "Master, it feels like your avatar didn't lose much, right?" "I lost 30%, Luo Feng said. Under Morosa's terrifying attack, Luo Feng's avatar had lost 3 perfect divine body energy reserves, which surprised Luo Feng. The power Morosa had unleashed was much stronger than that of the purple-robed woman. Of course, in the deep regions of the dream domain, Luo Feng's use of spiritual will targeted the purple-robed woman, limiting her to only part of her strength. "Master, let's compare again when my destruction path body has grown to its pinnacle," Morosa said, still not convinced. "Can your techniques be more intricate?" Luo Feng asked. "No way." Morosa shook his head. As a pinnacle sector beast, the destruction path body and the 36 ultimate realm secret techniques I naturally comprehended are the best secret techniques granted to me by the supreme rules. Even if I contemplate further, it's unlikely I'll be able to improve much. The supreme rules operated naturally, bestowing sector beasts with secret techniques that were the most suited to them. If the techniques can't be improved further, then there's no need to compare. Luo Feng shook his head. Losing 3 perfect divine body energy reserves at once left him somewhat distressed. Had he known, he would have let a stronger avatar do the comparison to reduce the loss. After this battle, Luo Feng also understood that, in the outside world facing emperors and monarchs with full sets of super-secret treasures, it's safer to act with the strongest avatar, which was more stable. Next episode. The Primordial Cosmos region, Luo Feng's small universe. Luo Feng's small universe was the same size as the primordial universe and had already become the sacred land of the human race. Under a great tree, Luo Feng waited alone. "It's time to let the human race strongholds come to the land of origin," Luo Feng thought. With the Star Tower in hand, even if the primordial ancestors of the 2 ancient countries came in person, he would not be afraid. Moreover, Morosa had also reached the ultimate realm, perfection in the Great Tao, and was not afraid of schemes. Although he was strong, Luo Feng was not adept at dealing with causality and the machinations of fate. He could easily be trapped by schemes if he kept to himself. But the human race strongholds were about to embark on the Samsara channel to the land of origin, so he naturally could not be careless. Otherwise, if any of the primal Chaos City Lords died, Luo Feng would not be able to forgive himself. Swoosh! 6 figures appeared all at once, coming to a place nearby. Luo Feng. Galaxy. They all looked at Luo Feng. "Luo Feng," the primal Chaos City Lord said with joy on his face, "you said the human race strongholds could come through the cycle of reincarnation, so I called these 5 old friends. All 6 of us are confident in advancing to a higher realm." "Thank you, teacher," Luo Feng said with a smile. The 6 were the primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong True God, Dark True God, Deserted Mirror True God, Ice Mountain True God, and Dragon True God. These were the early powerful figures of the human race. They became true gods with just a little bit of resources. With the help of Luo Feng and the primordial ancestor, all 6 of them were confident in reaching the level of a true god of void space. The Dark True God, who had a cold aura, said, "There are over 100 human true gods, and now that the inheritance is plentiful, there should be more than just the 6 of us who are confident in making the breakthrough. Transcending reincarnation to an unfamiliar place has its risks. There's no need to rush all at once," said the primal Chaos City Lord. "Teacher's words make sense," agreed Luo Feng. "Even among you 6, I think you should split into 2 groups. After the first group adapts, the second group can proceed. You decide, Luo Feng." All 6 of them were very clear that they knew nothing about the world after transcending reincarnation and were willing to follow Luo Feng's arrangements. After years of companionship, they naturally trusted Luo Feng. "First group, teacher, Dark Uncle, and Peng Gong, you 3 go first." After some time has passed, The second group will follow, Luo Feng said. Primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong True God, Dark True God. They were, after Luo Feng and the primordial ancestor, the next most powerful figures of the entire human race. Okay. All 6 were very excited. Even those who were to go in the second group, such as Deserted Mirror True God, Ice Mountain True God, and Dragon True God, were not in a hurry since Luo Feng's intentions suggested the 2 groups wouldn't be spaced far apart in time, and they had plenty of patience. Teacher, then you 3 should break through first. After the breakthrough, you can ride the same flying boat Secret Treasure through the Samsara Channel. This way, you can also arrive at the same region, Luo Feng said. The Primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong True God, and Dark True God had been looking forward to the world on the other side of the Samsara Channel for a long time, and they soon began their breakthroughs, with their small universe starting to expand. This scene naturally aroused the envy of other races in the primordial universe, but within the primordial cosmos region, the absolute dominance of the human race was beyond doubt. After all, seeing a galaxy universe as large as the primordial universe, the other races did not even think about resisting. After their successful breakthroughs, the Primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong, and Dark True God rode on the same flying boat Secret Treasure and quietly set out to traverse the Samsara Channel. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Land of Origin. Within Huyang City, Luo Feng had been waiting. They are here. Suddenly, Luo Feng sensed 3 lives entangled with him through deep causality arriving at the Land of Origin, the Primal Chaos City Lord and the other 2, who were lower in realm. Under Luo Feng's observation of causality, they naturally had no defenses and their location was instantly locked. Whoosh! With a thought from Luo Feng and a flash of black light, he had traversed half of the Land of Origin and arrived at a wilderness. This was the borderland of the Thunder Ancient Country. Luo Feng stood in the wilderness, smiling as he watched the Primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong, and Dark True God who had just arrived on the Land of Origin. Luo Feng concealed his presence and did not rush to reveal himself. Let the teachers experience the Land of Origin well, Luo Feng watched with a smile. Is this the world on the other side of the Samsara Channel? The 3, Primal Chaos City Lord, were excitedly taking in their surroundings. What a powerful world, the space is very stable, and the pressure is immense. Without external help, true gods probably can't even fly, Peng Gong said with emotion. Moreover, the laws of the universe here are so clear, much clearer than back home. Practicing here is indeed much easier than at home, the Primal Chaos City Lord also showed delight. It's more promising to reach higher levels. Comparing his experience with his avatar far back home, Dark True God said, the flow of time here is also different. While only 1 unit of time has passed here, back home 10,081 times that amount has elapsed. Boom! Crushing a stone, Peng Gong said with feeling, in such an environment, everything is extraordinary. Even a regular stone here could be used to forge weapon secret treasures back home. Curious, the 3 of them began to explore all the extraordinary aspects of the Land of Origin. Moments later, Luo Feng appeared. Luo Feng, the 3 of them looked at Luo Feng with surprise. How did you manage to find this place so quickly in such a vast and endless world? Peng Gong was astonished. This endless world is known as the Land of Origin, said Luo Feng with a smile, while 3 streaks of light flew towards the Primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong, and Dark. Here is more detailed information about the Land of Origin. I am now going to take you to Huyang City, where the primordial ancestor is also waiting for you. Above Huyang City, the Primal Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong, and Dark appeared out of thin air and stared blankly at the gigantic city before them. So many powerful existences. The trio was a bit shaken. Huyang City now, as the headquarters of the Blade River sect, commanded 155 primal chaos prefectures. The city walls had naturally been expanded to 10 times the length of Luo Feng's first visit to the Land of Origin, and the city's area had grown many times over. It was home to Luo Feng, Morosa, and other godly kings, as well as many from the primal chaos realm, and a large number of core disciples of the Blade River sect, teeming with strong individuals. Luo Feng has established a sect in the Land of Origin named Blade River Sect. The primordial ancestor appeared beside them. Teacher, The primal chaos city lord and dark bowed respectfully. Primordial ancestor, Peng Gong also showed great respect. The primordial ancestor explained with a smile, "This Huyang city is the headquarters of the Blade River sect. The number of true gods within the city is as many as several tens of trillions, with over 1 billion true gods of void space and tens of thousands of eternal true gods, as well as a few from the primal chaos realm, and of course, Luofeng, the godly king. Even among the entire land of origin, Huyang city can be considered a top-tier city," continued the primordial ancestor. The primal chaos city lord, Peng Gong, and Dark listened in a daze. They had just become true gods of void space and were quite proud of themselves. Who would have thought that in Huyang city, there would be over 1 billion true gods of void space? The creatures of the land of origin, as long as they grow normally, can generally become true gods. So the number of true gods is beyond count, Luofeng said. Our region in the primordial cosmos to produce a true god is many times more difficult. Luofeng and the primordial ancestor personally showed the way, treating the primal chaos city lord, Peng Gong, and Dark to a meal within Huyang city, and they also learned of the prosperity of the land of origin. Everything is extraordinary. So many different cultivation schools, dazzling to the eyes. The trio of the primal chaos city lord, Peng Gong, and Dark were thoroughly impressed. Disciples of the Blade River sect are categorized into ordinary disciples, core disciples, registered disciples of Luofeng, and direct disciples of Luofeng, explained the primordial ancestor. After joining the Blade River sect, you three will be nominally my students. The primal chaos city lord and Dark were already disciples of the primordial ancestor and naturally had no objections. Peng Gong also revered the primordial ancestor and was willing as well. Luofeng watched from the side. He had no choice. With one teacher, one martial uncle, and one senior Peng Gong, although the status of his direct disciples was the most precious within the Blade River sect, he could not take them as his own disciples. Having the primordial ancestor step in was very appropriate, and his status within the Blade River sect was high enough that his direct disciple status would be different from ordinary core disciples. I have discussed with Luofeng, and the cultivation resources for you three will be of the highest level. Even higher than those of Luofeng's direct disciples, said the primordial ancestor. Any from the human race who managed to come to the land of origin through samsara are of the highest level. Luofeng nodded. In the future of the Blade River sect, as human powerhouses rise, they would gradually be given management of many affairs. You all know that the land of origin is filled with countless crises. The primordial ancestor looked at them. I only have one requirement for you. Before you become an eternal true god, you are forbidden from leaving Huyang city. All right. Yes, teacher. The three of them promptly agreed. Already dazzled by Huyang city, they had plenty to explore. And since the city alone had over 1 billion true gods of void space and over 10,000 eternal true gods, they were well aware that if they ventured out recklessly, they could easily fall into misfortune. The headquarters of the Blade River sect was beside the primordial ancestors' cave mansion, and 3 new small cave mansions were specially constructed. From now on, this will be your residence. I will take charge of all matters concerning your cultivation, the primordial ancestor told the primal chaos city lord, Peng Gong, and Dark. Yes, teacher, the 3 of them responded. Rest today, and the arrangement of cultivation matters will start tomorrow, ordered the primordial ancestor before turning and leaving. The trio gathered in the primal chaos city lord's cave mansion. Unfathomable. The waters of the land of origin run too deep. They had received detailed information on the land of origin from Luofeng, and as the information was vast, they were now able to understand it carefully. The numerous countries in the land of origin, the forces both overt and covert, information about various primordial chaos realm beings, information about various godly kings. Although it was all basic information, even concise pieces about emperors and monarchs had been included by Luofeng. In the whole land of origin, Huyang city is rather inconspicuous. Some of the major cities of the 2 ancient countries are even more prosperous. Godly kings are divided into 3 realms: first realm of godly king, second realm of godly king, and ultimate realm of god king. The 2 ancient countries actually have 13 emperors and 9 monarchs. And 2 ancestors. Luofeng is also formidable, having reached the peak of the second level of God-King realm, just slightly below the emperors and monarchs. Luo Feng hasn't been in the land of origin for long, yet he has already come this far. 2 ancient countries, 3 first-rate powers, and 5 solitary cultivators capable of matching emperors. Then comes Luo Feng. After understanding the information, they felt their own power was quite strong. Although far from being comparable to the 2 ancient countries, in the peripheral areas of the land of origin, they were definitely a dominant power. The primal Chaos City Lord, Penggong, Dark, Deserted Mirror, Ice Mountain Master, and Long Xing, the 6 of them split into 2 groups, had traversed reincarnation and arrived at the land of origin, where they became disciples under the former elder of the Blade River sect. Even with my guidance and that of the primordial ancestor, there would perhaps be only about 10 human beings who could reach the level of a true god of void space. Luo Feng occasionally preached in his hometown, guiding the strong among the human race, hence he understood roughly the level of human power. The 6 who came this time were almost the strongest, apart from himself and the primordial ancestor. Morosa, Luo Feng looked towards Morosa by his side, whose true body was still within the star tower absorbing energy, only an avatar accompanying Luo Feng. Master, Morosa respectfully responded. Only when sparring with his master did he realize the unfathomable depths of his master. Having reached the ultimate realm himself, it was still very hard to gauge the actual strength of his master. Morosa had reached the ultimate realm, and that was his limit. To break through that limit, the possibility was nearly zero. Master's talent is extraordinary. Having arrived at the land of origin for 500 epochs, he is already stronger than me, an ultimate realm beast. Perhaps in the future, he will far surpass me, and maybe Master will find a way to help me break through my limits. Morosa had his own thoughts. If he didn't break the limit, then he would forever be under the influence of the path of destruction. When the land of origin meets its demise, he too would perish with the path of destruction. Morosa didn't want to die, he wanted to live. Luo Feng nodded. The 3 major first-rate forces, Tianmu Kingdom, Lord of the 10,000 Realms, and the East Extreme Domain were also stirring up trouble in secret, but external sources heard no rumors whatsoever. It was because they acted covertly that the outside world could not detect anything. With heavenly secrets obscured and causality blurred, unless someone witnessed it on sight, who could confirm that these deeds were the acts of these first-rate forces? Even the 2 ancient countries could only suspect. Nowadays, in cooperation with you, we are also considered a first-rate force. Luo Feng smiled at Morosa. The 10,000 Realms and Tianmu Kingdom are probably not as good as me and Master working together, Morosa confidently said. Luo Feng smiled. Among the 3 major first-rate forces, the East Extreme Domain after all had the East Extreme Domain ancestor. Even the ancient country ancestors had to show some respect. Don't underestimate them. The Lord of the 10,000 Realms was able to comprehend a complete Great Tao on his own. His spiritual will surpasses the godly king level, and perhaps over the lengthy years of cultivation, he has secretly broken through the limits of a godly king, Luo Feng said. Currently, there were few in the land of origin that could catch Luo Feng's attention. Arrange 3 avatars. Come with me on a trip, Luo Feng instructed. You only need to obscure heavenly secrets and blur causality. Leave the rest to me. 3 avatars to accompany Master out? Morosa was curious. What for? When you have enough strength, it's time to do certain things. Luo Feng smiled slightly. The top 10 sinners of the land of origin, let's deal with them all. Deal with them all? Morosa was shocked and couldn't help saying, Master, the top 10 sinners of the land of origin, there are deep waters here. Among them, some have identities belonging to the 2 ancient country imperial clans. And these top 10 sinners, some are only minions, they help capture billions of creatures, which ultimately are for the consumption of some emperors and monarchs. The creatures of the land of origin inherently contained certain essential essences of the source world. Consuming billions of creatures was also a method for cultivating the primordial bloodline. Among those rumored to practice this method were some emperors and monarchs. But emperors and monarchs bearing noble statuses naturally had minions to do these deeds, some of whom became the so-called top 10 sinners of the land of origin. Master, are you planning to offend the emperors and monarchs of the 2 ancient countries at the same time? Morosa was somewhat panicked. Even if his destruction path body grew to its pinnacle, it was only comparable to an emperor or monarch equipped with a full set of super-secret treasures. I'm not afraid. What are you afraid of? Luo Feng looked at Morosa. Morosa looked at Luo Feng. Master, if several emperors and monarchs join hands, and many beyond God King level secret treasures and formations are laid out, are you confident you can withstand it? His little self truly couldn't bear it. Don't worry, Luo Feng said. Morosa's eyes lit up. Master was very sure of himself. Luo Feng chuckled. If it were outside the land of origin, he would have to keep a low profile. But within the land of origin, even if the ancestors of the two countries personally came, there was nothing to fear. Master is not afraid, why should I be? Morosa suddenly brimmed with confidence. Kill, 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 whomever Master wants to kill, let's kill. These top 10 sinners, who exactly is behind them, is also a secret. Luo Feng smiled. They say the waters of the land of origin are deep, let's take this chance to measure them, stir things up, and see who jumps out. The top 10 sinners, the 3 weakest are the ancestral god of the snow realm, the sky who God King, and Lord Desolate Wind. Let's deal with these 3 first, Luo Feng said, from the weakest to the strongest, step by step. Snow realm territory. Year-round endless snowflakes fell, pooling into streams upon touching the ground, merging into numerous rivers. The countless rivers throughout the snow realm territory, and the snowflakes in the sky, all of these together constitute the true body of the ancestral god of the snow realm. A black-robed golden-faced man and an old servant appeared in this land. The ancestral god of the snow realm cultivated the great Tao of life origin and pursued the vastness of life. Although a large physical body is important, the essence of the body is even more significant, said Luo Feng, who also cultivated the great Tao of life origin and had reached the second realm of Godly King. He was currently comprehending various forms of the ultimate realm and naturally recognized the various flaws of the ancestral god of the snow realm at a glance. The creatures that grew generation after generation in the snow realm were his cultivation fodder, Luo Feng observed coldly. Survival of the fittest, he would not intervene too much. Even if some so-called gangs or dark forces were involved, as long as they didn't confront Luo Feng directly, he would not bother. After all, the creatures of the land of origin were not the human race of his hometown, and Luo Feng was reluctant to meddle too much. However, for beings like the ancestral god of the snow realm and the emperor of Tien Kuan, who slaughtered billions of creatures for their own sake, Luo Feng instinctively felt a desire to kill. To devour billions of creatures just to slightly enhance one's primordial bloodline? Such cultivators no longer considered themselves part of the cultivators. They reigned high above, viewing countless other creatures as their mere food. In Luo Feng's eyes, such cultivators were scum. To feast on billions of creatures, such cultivators should not be allowed to live in the land of origin. Luo Feng murmured softly. When he was not powerful enough, Luo Feng could endure. But when he was strong enough, it was time to do what needed to be done. Annihilate. Luo Feng looked at the sky filled with snowflakes, which were all part of the true body of the ancestral god of the snow realm. Logically, as soon as one entered the territory of the snow realm, one could not escape the ancestral god's perception. However, neither Luo Feng nor Morosa was detected by the ancestral god of the snow realm. As Luo Feng initiated the Lai Yuan technique. Boom! Luo Feng's spiritual will attack struck the snowflakes before him, attacking the vast and endless true body of the ancestral god of the snow realm. The ancestral god of the snow realm was at that moment immersed in the cultivation of the primordial bloodline. All within the snow realm were under his perception. With just a thought, snowflakes would devour the creatures, counted in trillions, and turn them into fodder for his cultivation. He was still careful, controlling the extent of his devouring, ensuring the reproduction rate could keep up with his devouring. When my strength advances further, I can expand the territory of the snow realm. The ancestral god of the snow realm still found his domain insufficient. Suddenly, the ancestral god of the snow realm could no longer sense anything else. He could only see a massive star rolling towards him, crushing everything. The ancestral god of the snow realm had no time to use any secret technique and was already crushed. No. Under the crush, even the debris was crushed into nothingness. Luo Feng was merciless, giving the ancestral god of the snow realm no chance of survival. In an instant, the spiritual will of the ancestral god of the snow realm was completely obliterated. His enormous physical body had also become a corpse, appearing within the territory of the snow realm, resembling the majestic corpse of a beast. With a wave of his hand, Luo Feng collected it and disappeared together with Morosa. Henceforth, the countless creatures that had bred generation after generation in the territory of the snow realm entered a new era. The darkest sky above their heads had disappeared. At the same time, a man in a black robe with a golden mask and an old servant also arrived in the domain ruled by the Skyhu God King, known as the Skyhu Country. The Skyhu God King's domain, nestled between the Thunder Ancient Country and the Wanjie Kingdom, was one of many small countries. Though weaker than the Emperor of Tien Kuan, the Skyhu God King, with his second realm of godly king strength, was sufficient to wreak havoc. As he ruled, all creatures within his domain were also his consumption. I can only devour 1/10 of the food, the rest must be sent to the monarch. The massive body of the Skyhu God King coiled deep within the palace. If I could devour freely, my strength could also advance further. Suddenly, the man in the black robe with a golden mask and the old servant arrived deep within the palace, where the spiritual will of the Skyhu God King was obliterated, already reduced to a corpse. With a wave of his hand, Luo Feng collected the corpse of the Skyhu God King. Lord Desolate Wind ruled a massive island, which housed 39 provinces of primal chaos. This island, located near the Flame Wind Ancient Country, boasted a superior geographical location and a cultivation environment much higher than that around Huyang City. The 39 provinces of primal chaos bred a quantity of creatures equal to half the scale of the 155 territories under Huyang City's control. Lord Desolate Wind, as an ancient godly king of the second realm and also a guest elder of the Flame Wind Ancient Country. Countless creatures on the entire island simply couldn't resist this Lord Desolate Wind. Puff! Luo Feng and Morosa arrived on the island, and instantly in a quiet room within a palace, they collected the corpse of Lord Desolate Wind. Thus, the 3 weakest godly kings among the top 10 sinners of the land of origin were all killed at the same time. Naturally, this event shocked all the powers across the land of origin. This video will end here.